Ready. 3, 2, 1, go!
Hello viewers and welcome. Let's start this video for 10 great arcade games with a genuine hidden gem. If you're thinking to yourself that you seem to have missed Super Woden GP1, I'm not surprised. Most people did. It probably didn't help that the thumbnail art for the original game looked like something you begrudgingly stick to your fridge when your 6-year-old comes home from school, and the game could only really be found lurking in the arse end of digital store pages, alongside the usual worthless crap called things like Thundering Grapefruits and Suck My Hamster. Anyway, once you get past the unusual name and some uninspiring initial artwork, I'm pleased to say that things pick up dramatically. Super Woden GP II takes what was already an excellent little isometric arcade racer and builds on it in every conceivable way. There are over 180 vehicles in the game, ranging from vans to hypercars, and they do all look, sound and handle in a variety of different ways, with the option to customise and upgrade just about all of them. On the track, power sliding, slipstreaming and the sense of weight all feel really good, and it may be an arcade game, but there's always a nice amount of nuance to master with each new vehicle. The Gran Turismo style menu screen will lead you to one-off weekend events that require a certain vehicle or horsepower, multi-race championships and point-to-point rally stages with jumps and obstacles. As you progress, you're awarded money, stars and free vehicles, unlocking more tracks and events, and you can replay any race for extra funds if you find you're a few quid short of that car you've had your eye on. The unlicensed nature of the cars and tracks, and possibly some translation issues, also often raises a chuckle as you take your Soup Gloria for a spin around the Muff Ring or the Snowy Chicken. It would have been nice to have been able to adjust the camera a little bit more. Super Woden GP2 becomes extremely fast with the more expensive cars and requires intimate knowledge of the track or a constant read of the minimap in the corner of the screen to avoid clattering into walls. You can zoom into your vehicle during a race, but coming back out a bit further and higher would have been much more helpful and would have given a greater sense of place for each location. You might find yourself muting the in-game music as well fairly early on. Maybe I'm just old, but the repetitive tunes started to make me feel like I was trapped in a Bulgarian nightclub. But that's about it for the negatives as far as I'm concerned. Rounding out the Super Woden GP2 package is an arcade mode that focuses on the rally tracks, giving you 3 credits to get across all of the stages with increasingly stringent time limits. There are the usual time trials, and last but certainly not least is the 4-player split-screen multiplayer, where you can use any of the cars you've unlocked in the campaign on any track you like. But do bear in mind that there are no online racing options, if that's usually how you take your multiplayer. The absolute most Super Woden GP2 will ever cost you is £9, roughly €10 or $10, and you can guarantee it will regularly end up on sale for probably less than half that at regular intervals. It represents fantastic value for money for any arcade racing fan, and I can't wait to see what a developer does with the game and any sequel in future. I don't mind admitting that I felt a certain sense of disappointment when I began playing New Star GP. The early career races that set you in the 1980s feel very much like a 50cc Mario Kart tournament, slow and far too easy, punctuated by seemingly endless did you know exposition text boxes. But after a few races I began to appreciate the more gradual introduction to all the elements in play here, and things soon sped up very nicely. New Star GP is a lot more feature packed than you might think. Starting with customising your very own driver, a mullet and handlebar moustache naturally, you begin to build your own car, upgrade it, add sponsors, choose race day perks, mix up your team in their various roles and try to keep them happy for extra bonuses. And then you'll tell the media which other driver on the grid you'd date if you had to, amongst other rivalry baiting questions. It's similar to the kind of thing you see in the official Formula 1 games these days, only much funnier and with some tangible results depending on your answers, which can include a lot more aggro when you're driving. On track the handling is excellent and it gets better at speed. The upgrades and perks you choose make a noticeable difference, and how you deal with tyre wear, fuel and damage becomes a really satisfying strategy to get right, but the admin never gets in the way of just having fun. It's all quick and easy to pull off. The numerous tracks on offer are all loosely based on real-world circuits, with some familiar features, and the selection expands as you make your way through the decades in the career. They're all great to drive at just the right lengths, and as with Super Woden GP II, the offline-only 4-player split-screen multiplayer is fantastic fun. If you enjoy this kind of old-school aesthetic and outrageous power slides, you might want to take a look at Hotshot Racing, which I covered in a previous video for 5 underrated arcade races. It's not as feature-packed as New Star GP, but there's definitely room for both games on your hard drive. Before I go into any detail about Moto Racer 4, I need to tell you one thing. This game cost me 89p. That's about €1 or $1. What the hell can you buy with that these days? Well, as it turns out, a pretty rare arcade experience. Full disclosure, that rock bottom price was available during a PS Store sale. The game is normally £9 or about $10, but as with all of the games on this list, the price regularly crashes back down again. Moto Racer 4 isn't remotely interested in taking itself seriously. Finally, we have a bike game that just wants you to have some big, stupid fun, jumping as high and as far as you can on out-and-out arcade tracks, and I've really enjoyed it. The game mixes up street racing with motocross circuits, and a lot of effort has gone into each location to make them as feature-packed and enjoyable as possible. The varied career mode will eventually take you through all 14 tracks, 7 roads, 7 dirt circuits, unlocking new riders and their bikes as you go. There are also another 4 worthwhile tracks available with 2 pieces of cheap DLC. As far as looks are concerned, it's true that this game isn't going to push your modern PC or console, but it's by no means an ugly game, and the speed and the handling are excellent. It's also true that the single-player career mode will get repetitive fairly quickly and can suffer with difficulty spikes, but that's when your attention should turn to the online multiplayer. Now obviously you're not going to meet many randoms online with a game this obscure, but you can set up private lobbies for up to 8 riders in total, designing your own custom tournament with up to 18 races of your choosing across the road and motocross stages. And only one of you needs to own the extra 4 DLC tracks for everybody to be able to race them. You might not be playing Moto Racer 4 for months on end, but with a decent career, excellent tracks, a superb multiplayer, 51 trophies or achievements to hunt down, and once again the fact that the whole thing is cheaper than most chocolate bars these days, I'd love to know in the comments below if anyone can think of better value this year. The reception to Tabletop Racing World Tour upon its release in 2016 was pretty muted at best, and I can understand that. It's a relatively small game in a number of ways, but it's certainly not without its merits, especially if you're the type of gamer that loves a single-player challenge and shaving tenths off your lap times. The game is effectively Micro Machines played from a chase cam perspective, with a dash of Mario Kart in the weapons you use in some races. You can choose from a wide array of unlicensed but very obviously real-world vehicles, including everything from a Winnebago to a Bugatti Veyron, and the detail and customization options are quite impressive. You can swap out the tyres on any of your cars, fitting some rubber that might grip harder or let you drift more easily. You can even fit tyres that let you bounce great distances to nail a shortcut or collect a big floating coin that will fill your coffers to buy more vehicles and upgrades. The tracks, while mostly fairly short, are all equally detailed and feature-packed, with a variety of risk-reward shortcuts to discover and navigate. The themes for each course are really good fun, including a race across a Yo Sushi countertop, through an 80s bedroom and around the deck of a luxury boat. 2 small pieces of inexpensive DLC add extra tracks, cars and challenges to further flesh out your options. There's a variety of objectives across a lengthy campaign and challenges mode that forces you to make use of pretty much all the cars at your disposal. These events are a great little diversion when you just want to dip in and out of something quickly in single player. Obviously no one is playing this online these days, and it's very disappointing that there's no split screen multiplayer at all, but you can still set up a private lobby for up to 8 races, which can be a lot of fun across the course of an evening or 2. From one of the smallest arcade races to one of the very biggest and most expansive, Riders Republic looks incredible right the way across its vast playground for outdoor sport, combining some of the most dramatic features from several of America's biggest national parks. The sensation of hammering downhill on skis, snowboards and mountain bikes, or through canyons inches from the walls or the floor in wingsuits or while wearing a jetpack, is a visceral, addictive thrill, and the various courses make great use of the geography. It's all very easy to get to grips with, and barring the odd issue with the camera when things get up close, the controls are tight and responsive. Riders Republic fully embraces its sense of the ridiculous, letting you snowmobile as a pink fluffy panda or ride an oversized bicycle in a fat suit amongst a million other combinations that you'll unlock as you progress through the events. There are a ton of individual races and trick competitions to enter across the map for every discipline, and it's entirely up to you which one to take on next. Given a number of players involved and the potential for frustration, races aren't quite full contact affairs like some kind of snowbound road rash. Instead, you will feel some light nudging from the ghosts of real-world players who've previously taken the same route, or from your friends as you tackle the same race via the online multiplayer. The sense of impact dials up a bit when you collide handlebars with up to 63 other people in the three-stage madness that is a mass race against live online opponents, automatically swapping between at least 2 or 3 different disciplines as you go. These are quite the spectacle and can be a lot of fun, even if you get nowhere near the front. Of course, this being a Ubisoft game, we have some familiar issues to contend with. As with their motor racing series, The Crew, there's a sense that every single event is entirely separate and inconsequential, save for earning a bit of cash and XP for new kit. You don't need to win or even come in any particular position for most of the races in Riders Republic, you just have to get yourself to the end of the course. The idea is that you're never really finished with an event as such, and you can play it over and over again. I'm sure many people will like the relaxed approach, but some may find not working towards any particular goal a bit hollow. And yes, you know the drill with this developer. Every time you boot up the game, you will be invited to buy plenty of colourful crap, with reminders throughout your playtime. Ubisoft's title screens increasingly read like a junk mail folder these days, but I am happy to report that Riders Republic has more than enough game by default until you get anywhere near the urge to buy one of the overpriced chunks of DLC for BMX or skateboarding events. Riders Republic is completely free as part of PS Plus Extra at the time of recording, while physical copies can be purchased for peanuts these days across every format. It's definitely worth a look, especially for those with the latest consoles and PCs. FlatOut 4 Total Insanity is probably the most arcade racer on this list. It's big, chunky, colourful, dumb fun. Exactly the kind of game that would have been housed in an oversized car-shaped cabinet, melting your eardrums and pounding your retinas if we actually still had arcades these days. Understandably, a lot of people were nervous to go anywhere near this game initially. FlatOut 3, released some years earlier, was about as much fun as a trouser full of bum plums at a who can sit down the longest competition. I promise you the game you're watching now is a marked improvement in every way. FlatOut 4 just gets on with it. The career will start you in the rookie races with slower, banged up cars, and you'll progress through 2 more categories of bigger, faster vehicles before being crowned the undisputed champ. There's an excellent variety of cars and trucks to plough through the largely destructible environments, and it feels great to boost hard and smash an opponent off the road, watching metal and debris fly everywhere. You will need to grind quite hard for some of the better vehicles, but you can replay any of your favourite events over and over again for maximum XP each time. Although, favourite or not, you will be replaying the same tracks over and over anyway, as there isn't that many on offer here. One chunk of DLC adds 2 more tracks, 2 new cars and a destruction arena, but this won't be a game you spend days on end exploring. Aside from the straight races, you also have Destruction Derby events, but these feel a bit lightweight and aren't a patch on FlatOut's sister series, the mighty Wreckfest. The physics-based sport games also make a return from the earlier FlatOut games, in which you basically shoot down a ramp and fling your driver out of his windscreen and into a dartboard, a golf hole or into beer pong cups, amongst other things. You can play this mode past the pad style with friends, but the samey action probably won't hold your attention for long. Like many of the games on this list, FlatOut 4 is a dirt cheap giggle for when you really can't be bothered to think. There's no local multiplayer, but you can easily spend a couple of hours with friends online, smashing into each other and inventing new swear words. Regular viewers will know that I covered Skydrift Infinity in one of my videos for 10 excellent arcade games a little while back, but I'm more than happy to bring it to your attention again here as something a bit different to everything else on this list. If you hadn't already guessed, Skydrift Infinity is effectively Mario Kart with planes, and it now features the 4-player split screen option that was missing from the game's original release, all the way back in 2011. The main focus is racing through a variety of largely excellent courses, using a range of impactful weapons to take down your opponents. Being able to dodge under, over and around the various obstacles gives the game an edge you don't find with any other racer, and there is a certain amount of skill in maintaining your speed while attacking or defending. As you progress through the single player campaign, you'll unlock a wide variety of new planes and several liveries for each of them. The differences aren't hugely pronounced, but there are definitely a few that turn tighter or reach a higher top speed, and they all look good. Unfortunately, the single player campaign is relatively quick to highlight my biggest criticism here, and this might be starting to sound familiar, and that's a lack of places to race. What's here looks and plays great with some clever shortcuts, and it's more than enough for the occasional evening of split screen carnage, but it's disappointing that no new locations have been added in well over a decade since the original game first appeared. Skydrift Infinity doesn't have the breadth of content that Mario Kart can boast, but given the regularly discounted price and the fact that there are so few 4-player games of this type for anyone who doesn't play on Switch, I'd still absolutely recommend that you give this a chance.
You have taken the lead.
Trials HD was a breakthrough arcade hit on the Xbox 360, helping to set the indie scene alight at the end of the noughties. The game and its subsequent sequel were such a success that Ubisoft brought the development studio under their wing, allowing for more expansive, varied and polished entries thereafter, culminating with Trials Rising, which is by some distance the best version of the game yet. If you've never played any of the Trials games before, the pitch is pretty simple. Choose a bike and ride it from point A to B over a variety of obstacles. You'll traverse both semi-real world and surreal tracks using the physics of momentum and gravity to aid you on your way. Anyone who fondly remembers Excitebike from the NES should be particularly interested at this point. The outlandish tracks have a sense of place in Trials Rising that the first few games never had. The developers have really lent into the international spectacle here as you jump past waterfalls in South America, over hot air balloons in Asia and off castle walls in Europe. And for the first time in the series, for me at least, you can make progress across a lot more of the tracks and competitions before that notorious difficulty kicks in and you start hammering your head off the wall in frustration. The side-by-side party mode is great for couch co-op and online, but the main event of chasing down ghosts to beat your friend's time is where you'll end up most often. If you're skilled enough, you can create your own tracks using a huge suite of options and share them in-game with the community. Some of the creations out there now are just as good as anything the developers have come up with. As with Riders Republic, you will have to wade through the usual Ubisoft crap of being offered endless cosmetics for sale. Rewards for completing stages in the main game can feel severely limited at times for those who don't want to stump up any more cash. In fact, they're pretty pathetic a lot of the time, but they do nothing to diminish the core enjoyment on offer here, and there's enough customization to make your rider and bike your own without having to spend any more money. It is a shame to see a number of extra tracks and bikes hidden behind a fairly steep paywall though. You will have to suffer loading times of up to a full minute or more between stages, but the locations are such great fun that it lessens the pain once you're there, and any restarts you need are instantaneous. I don't know if we'll see another Trials game, but if this is the end for the series, it's a great way to bow out, and every arcade racing fan needs to give it a go. Whether you're 4 or 40, you are going to find a lot to like in Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged. The game looks fantastic in every corner of its presentation, not least the photoreal representations of around 200 of the most iconic miniature vehicles, right down to the scratches on the paintwork after a race. The tracks on offer are a marked improvement over the first game, set in infinitely more interesting locations like a dinosaur museum, a miniature golf course and a 90s arcade, and the sense of speed is thrilling. The game also does a much better job of convincing you that you're upside down or climbing walls on certain tracks, and I noticed that the drifting seems to have been refined so you spend less time hugging the barriers, although the handling is still fairly nuanced and varied between most of the vehicles. The meat of the game in Hot Wheels 2 Turbocharged is once again a campaign, played out in various stages across what looks like a detailed playmat. This time, however, proceedings are accompanied by a sort of semi-static cartoon, which explains how you suddenly find yourself miniaturized and driving through someone's back garden. Younger viewers may want to sit through some of this, but everyone else can just skip on.
I'm detecting a 74% chance you're being sarcastic. Can you confirm?
The new boss battles that punctuate proceedings are actually a very interesting idea, tasking you to drive in a certain way around a track against a timer in order to damage the creature in question. And beyond the point-to-point and circuit tracks, we now have checkpoint races which ask you to find the quickest route possible between pillars of light, and very often make use of the new jump mechanic to leap through obstacles for a shortcut. These are a welcome addition. And if you think you can do any better than the developers, the extensive track creator is back, albeit about as fiddly as it was before on console. All the same, I can definitely see creative types sinking hours into this to hone the perfect plastic playground. One of my only real problems with this game is how races are never divided into classes, even though the vehicles are. As such, a monster truck, as much fun as they are, is rarely going to beat one of the supercars in a straight race, and the same goes for several of the other novelty vehicles, which renders them almost completely redundant in many scenarios, especially online. Milestone has clearly tried to balance this by giving the slower vehicles more boost capacity and the ability to bully any other vehicle off the track when racing wheel to wheel, but adding certain restricted categories of race type along the campaign would certainly help to show off the full roster of vehicles before everyone settles on the same lightning quick car for all their races. Still, you can always reduce or increase the difficulty in single player, and where else can you race a bus against a toilet and a taco on wheels? The whole experience never fails to make you smile, and getting friends involved for the online matchups or two-player split-screen races, finding more favourite and bizarre vehicles, is something that provokes conversations long after you stop playing. And if you're still unsure, I can tell you that I picked up this game on PS5, including both season passes for 18 quid. That's around €20 or just over $20. That's fantastic value for a game that's barely a year old and offers this much content. I'd completely forgotten how much fun gravel is, especially if you've got even the most basic steering wheel and pedals set up. Looking over the nose of your overpowered rally car, buggy, truck or even your tank feels great, and that's an experience you don't often get with arcade racers, which are often too twitchy and urgent for peripherals. For me, gravel is developer Milestone at their best, not taking anything too seriously. The fully licensed cars and lengthy varied point-to-point and circuit races on offer here form a solid arcade package we don't see nearly enough of these days. A lot of the tracks are nicely organic affairs that won't insist you stick rigidly between the traditional red and white barriers, only that you hit checkpoints at certain stages. Ranging in location from Namibia to Alaska, they're often full of crazy jumps and obstacles, with long, satisfying power slides into caves, rivers and across beaches. The career does a good job in mixing everything up, constantly rewarding you with new vehicles and liveries. Aside from the straightforward races, you also have eliminations, smash-up events where you have to hit green arrows rather than red X's to keep your speed up, and then you have the tighter stadium and speed cross events across gravel and tarmac. On the negative side, of course, you will end up repeating a lot of the same tracks eventually, and the frame rate can dip here and there. But a lot of the tracks are so fast and so much fun that you really won't mind revisiting them, especially if you have a new set of wheels to try out. You can regularly buy gravel, including DLC, for under £5, and with Codemaster's Dirt series apparently now dormant, I'd really love to see Milestone step in with a next-gen sequel to gravel, adding some more polished tracks and maybe some two-wheeled options. The world needs more fun, not more sterile simulation. Here's hoping. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching as always. Drop me a like if you wouldn't mind, and I'll be back very soon with a lot more. Cheers for now.